Hey folks, it's Pravus. I know it's been a while since we last did one of these IRL videos, but I've got something on my mind that I'd like to talk about a bit today, if you'll indulge me. For once, this is going to have nothing to do with the channel, or if it does, it's going to be very indirect. You see, today is my birthday, and I have been reflecting on this last year of my life because without a doubt, it has been the most wild and wonderful year I think I've ever had. 15 months ago, my son was born, so this is the first full year of my life where I have been a father. And I look at my audience demographics, and I know that a very large percentage of you fall into that younger adult category between 18 and 30, and I'm willing to bet that a fair number of you guys have been wondering, what is in store for your life? Is parenthood even something you'd want to consider? Are you excited or are you terrified of it, right? So I kind of want to offer one man's experience, anecdotal though it may be, as to what that first-time parenting experience really can look like. And there is a reason that this is on my mind. I promise by the end of the video, you will understand why. So let's jump back to the beginning. The birth of my son was a little bit difficult, to say the least. He was due to be born on Star Wars Day, May the 4th, and that did not happen, to my disappointment. No, he decided to take his sweet time to the point where the doctors got a little bit nervous about my wife's blood pressure, and they sent us to the hospital several times before eventually they did admit us and decide they have to induce labor. But after 2 days of attempting to induce labor, nothing was happening, and we had no choice but to elect for a C-section. Now, some women actually prefer a C-section. You get a bypass labor entirely, you have a very specific day that the birth is going to occur. It makes it very easy to plan around. That is not what my wife had in mind, though. She was terrified and shaking like a leaf. I actually remember I was in the surgical suite with her, and I can't see anything that's happening there, and she's awake for everything, obviously. But I'm sitting there with her up by her face. I'm trying to keep her calm and comforted, but I'm not doing a good job because I can hear her heart monitor going boop, 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 until eventually a nurse came around the curtains like, hey, they've already started. You can't feel anything because the anesthetic's working. It's going to be okay. And I heard the heart monitor just go boop, 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 as she calmed down. It was so funny. She was so scared, the poor thing. But then there also came a very specific moment where, again, you can't feel anything down there, but you can sense like some pressure changes, right? And her eyes suddenly got real wide and started to sparkle, and she started just saying, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. And then sure enough, the curtain drops, the baby gets lifted up like Simba from The Lion King, and he's this pale white and purple, and he looks like an alien, but he opens his little mouth and he screams, and I swear it is the most remarkable memory that I have. You see, as a bit of background, I wasn't really sure that I wanted to be a father for a good long time. Well, that's not entirely true. I knew I wanted to have kids, but I had a lot of apprehension about it because I respected that, being a dad comes with a lot of sacrifice and a lot of responsibility, right? I knew I was going to have to give up so much of who I was, and at the same time, you don't really get to build the same emotional connection and bonding that the woman does, right? She gets to feel the little kid kicking around, right? She's already got that kind of maternal instinct setting in. For a dad, it's more like an interloper. It's a ticking time bomb in my life. And again, it's not that you're not excited, it's just, I don't know, it's a bunch of mixed emotions. But right after my son was born, we got a little skin-to-skin contact, and then they had to sew my wife back up. So a nurse comes over with this little wrapped-up bundle and shoves him in my arms, and now I'm standing at the side of the room in the surgical suite, not expecting to be holding a baby all my own. And then there I am. I'm holding this little guy. I'm looking down, and he starts to open his eyes. He looks up at me, and he frowns because he's got no concept of what he's looking at. He's very confused. But there is something in that moment that is absolutely magical. Some sort of primal instinct in your brain just clicks. All of the apprehension, all of the worry, that gets shoved to the side immediately. You just look down at this little new fresh life that is entirely dependent on you, and you think, okay, hi, I'm your dad. I will provide and protect you, and I am going to raise you to be a wonderful human being. I've talked to a lot of dads before and after my son was born, and every single one of them has described that moment in kind of the same way. It's one of those things where it's going to happen. Everyone tells you it does, but until you're in it, you just don't really quite believe it, right? But then, man, it just snaps. It works. It's magic. I don't know how else to explain it, but it's absolutely amazing. Now, the next 6 weeks, a bit less so. I honestly will stand by the first 6 weeks are the worst of having a newborn, because you will not get almost any sleep for days on end. The little baby is crying and eating and pooping and is just a mess, and you don't really know what you're doing because you took classes, but come on, that doesn't totally prepare you for the real thing. And it's funny because in those same classes, they will specifically tell you, no matter how frustrated you get, do not shake the baby. And for anyone who's listening, it's like, well, yeah, duh, don't shake the baby. But I'll tell you what, when you've run down all the list of options and you cannot calm down that screaming baby and you feel so helpless, there's sometimes nothing you want to do but shake the baby, which you can't do, and that's where you really need to have a partner on hand or someone else from your community and family to say, take the baby right now, I'm not okay. There's also a funny little phenomenon that I didn't know existed until I went through this myself, but when you're really sleep deprived and you have a newborn, you'll hear something called phantom crying. And then what that means is basically whenever you have some white noise, like let's say you get into the shower, you turn on the fan, your brain will interpret that meaningless noise as a baby screaming its head off. And it's very distressing. And you'll hop out of the shower, you turn off the fan, it's dead silent because the baby's asleep. And you realize, oh God, I am not okay. Now, unbeknownst to us, we actually were making our lives a little bit harder on ourselves, at least for the first few days, because we were unintentionally starving our kid. We were trying to go down the breastfeeding route. We believe that that's the best thing for a kid, and there's a lot of science to back some of that up. But it turns out that there are certain medical conditions where the baby and the mother can do everything right, and then just for whatever reason, the food does not flow. There's some swelling involved, stuff like that, right? So everything looked good, but we felt like something was wrong, and it took several days before the doctors finally said, you know, yeah, it looks like everything's right, but I don't think he's getting fed. Let's try moving the formula and do something different. And lo and behold, that solved a whole lot of problems. It did mean that every 2 hours, I had to feed my baby son like a little baby bird, but it got him fed, and it's amazing how his mood improved. Really though, the first 6 weeks, that's the hard part, and then you have to make a choice as a young couple, right? In our case, we went down the traditional route. I had to go back to work, and my wife elected to be the stay-at-home mom. And she still is and probably will be for the foreseeable future. And for me, at least, I get to get out of the house. And my wife does not, so she gets the worst end of it in a lot of ways. But at the same time, it's a little bit difficult for me too, because I've got all the anxiety of being away. I've been with them for the last few weeks, and I just want to get updates all the time, and then at least I have something really exciting to get back home to. That at least is very nice. But you adjust. It's really not that bad. It just takes a little bit of work, and you'll figure it out. The next few months end up being a bit of a blur. Right? It feels like every 2 weeks the game changes on you. You'll figure out a rhythm and a pattern that seems to calm the kid, you can get him down to sleep, and then something happens. Either they got a tooth coming in, or they have a sleep regression, or whatever it is, and you gotta start all over because your past tricks don't work. It's frustrating, but you really learn a lot of patience when you are a new parent. You also learn that you can handle a lot of things that you probably couldn't before, right? Just a lot of things in life that might have disgusted you or bothered you just don't really matter anymore. Newsflash, when you have a toddler, your house is going to be a mess. It just will be. When you're changing diapers, there are days you're just going to get poop on your fingers. It's gross, you wipe it off, you move on, because it just doesn't matter that much. I would say it's really around month like 5 or 6 that things get genuinely exciting. Because let's be honest, your entire life revolves around having this kid. It's like getting a new puppy or a kitten. You can't help but talk about it to anyone who's going to listen, and every single little milestone is something to be excited about. I mean, you wouldn't think that being able to roll over on your back is a big deal, but we were all super excited when my kid figured it out. But it's really around month 5 or 6, though, that it's not just like little milestones. The personality starts to come out. And that's when things get really exciting, because now I know all these different things about my son. I know that he loves music. It doesn't really matter what the music is, though weirdly enough, he likes techno rap. Go figure. But if it's got a rhythm and a melody, he will try to dance to it if you let him. I know that he is an adventurous little kid who loves to climb, because that kid started going upstairs way sooner than he should have been able to, and also started getting on and off furniture, including some pretty tall stuff. Side note, my kid is really tall. Like, he's in the 99th percentile in height for his age. Like, that kid's gonna be a basketball player. You learn some of their likes, some of their dislikes. You learn to distinguish, cries of distress versus just throwing a tantrum. And you really start to treasure all the little things with your kid, because you know that it's all gonna be very fleeting. Right now, even a year in, my son will snuggle with me every morning when I wake him up and every night when I put him down to bed. And it is the sweetest thing in the world, but that's not going to last forever, and I know that. And this is another big lesson that I learned because, I told you I had all this apprehension going into having a kid, but beyond even that, I was really sure that I was going to hate the first 1 or 2 years of having children because they can't exactly rationalize, right? They can't communicate properly. They can't do much of anything. They're just kind of, I don't want to say a burden, but they're just a big sacrifice for not a whole lot in return. There's nothing intellectual there. So I really assumed that I was going to hate it, but no, they can communicate in their own kind of way, and they are actually really fun. Like, I get to play with my son. I don't get to play often in my life. I play video games for a living, but I don't truly play, I just work. But with my son, I just sit back as what else is there to do except just get on the ground and make funny noises and just goof off. It's awesome. I don't know, really caught me by surprise, but it's very different than what I thought it was going to be, and I love this stage. It might be my new favorite thing. And I think that it's going to be difficult for what I'm saying to land with some young adults in the new generation, because I'm aware that there are certain online movements and kind of a pessimism around parenting and also just marriage in general, stuff like that, right? It just doesn't make a lot of sense to the person who's never experienced themselves, because admittedly, it's very counterintuitive. People will say, well, I'm going to have to give up so much of who I am. I'm going to be exhausted all the time. Having a kid is really expensive. I'm going to have to sacrifice my hobbies. I can't leave the house or go on vacations and blah, 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 right? There's so much sacrifice involved, and it's true. All of that is true. You will give up all of those things. A big chapter of your life does come to an end, at least for now. But the thing is, it's all totally worth it, right? It's kind of like I describe to young people how marriage works. There's something counterintuitive in that as well. A lot of people love the idea of marriage and settling down with someone, and they think to themselves, this person really makes me happy. Because at the end of the day, what they're really doing is they're kind of thinking about themselves and how their needs are going to be getting met. But in a good, healthy marriage, my opinion, true love is actually putting other people's needs above your own. Right? It's easy to be infatuated with someone or feel attraction and affection towards someone, but eventually things are going to change. I mean, how can they not? We grow as people and the expectations change, and that can lead to disappointment and resentment and pain. But in a good, healthy relationship, if you're not focusing on what you get out of it, you're focusing on meeting your spouse's needs, it's amazing how fulfilling that truly is. And ideally, they're doing the same thing for you in a good, healthy marriage, and everyone actually is having their needs met, but in a far more fruitful and meaningful way than if you were just trying to have kind of a transactional relationship. With a baby, it's even less obvious why that would make a lot of sense, because the kid's not going to give you much of anything for a while, if ever, honestly. And yet, there is something about the nature of sacrifice and putting someone else above your own and having that sense of purpose that is so fulfilling. I can't find it any other way. I can't find it in work. I can't find it in material things. It can only be found in genuine loving relationship. Now, I'm not trying to say y'all young people ought to go out there and have babies because it's going to give you a new sense of purpose. I mean, you can do that. Everyone's going to be different. I completely understand that. Some people don't have the interest or the ability or the temperament for something like that. We've all heard the saying, every child deserves a parent, but not every parent deserves a child, and that is certainly going to be true. All I can say for sure is, as weird as it is, you are correct about all the things you have to give up, and it is 100% worth it. I don't know a single parent who wouldn't make the same decision again 100 times over. And that's actually a really good segue into the next point of this video, because I did say that there was a reason that this is on my mind, right? Well, you see, it turns out that my wife and I are apparently gluttons for punishment. Because, well, we kind of have another one on the way right now. Yes, and Yali is pregnant again. She's about 14 weeks in. We are expecting number 2 to come around in February on Valentine's Day, surprisingly enough. And actually, at the time I'm recording this, sometime in the next 24 hours, I should be finding out what the gender is going to be. And you can imagine, we're kind of on pins and needles right now, so very, very exciting. At the same time, a lot of that same nervous apprehension is rearing its head once again, right? Because now I have some idea what to look forward to, but I also know that I have to take care of a toddler at the same time, and I can't be in two places at once, and it just sounds so gosh darn stressful and expensive, and I'm still not going to be able to sleep anymore, and it's just, no. But the thing is, I've been through this before, and amazingly, against all of my intuition, everything is fine. It's worked out phenomenally. It's been brilliantly awesome. So I am excited. I am genuinely excited. I think that I can survive this second kid and hopefully more kids to follow, and I'm looking forward to being in this stage again. Anyway, that's where I'll leave things. I just wanted to share with you guys this latest development in life. Again, nothing to talk about here with the channel. You can infer what's going to come next. But we're just excited. We're very happy, and I wanted to share. So thank you all very much for watching. If you have any questions, you want to just talk about some stuff in the Discord, I'm certainly open to that. I've also got some other really experienced dads in the Discord who can corroborate my experience. So if that's something that interests you, by all means bring it up. I'll talk about my kid any day of the week. Otherwise, I love you all. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.